Hey, help support the show by becoming a member on Patreon or YouTube. You'll get 4 bonus videos a month, plus ad-free versions of every Junkyard pod, and a special shout out at the beginning of each video. This is the best way to help me as a creator, and so thank you and go Cavs.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Let's get ready to
Welcome to the Junkyard Pod. I'm Tony Pesta, joined by Jackson Flickinger, joining us from in hostile territory. He went to the enemy's land. He was so confident in his take. He said many times before the series that it would be Cavs in 4. He has never backed down from that, even when they went down 0-2, because he still thinks the Cavs can win 4 straight. He's such a madman. He went all the way to Indiana to prove it. Jackson, you were there for this game, the Cavs. Statement win, game 3. Break down what the vibes were like in Indiana, in the field house.
What were the vibes like? There were a couple, I would say disgruntled. They were disgruntled with how, I would say how the Cavs were just dominating in the paint, honestly. They were most disgruntled with, the whistle, which I don't think it was I don't think it was a great referee game. However, the Cavs were the more aggressive team. They were the bigger team. They were the team that was always in the correct position, so they kind of got a lot of calls that the home fans didn't like, and I think that just kind of speaks to the dominance that we really saw from this team inside. We talked about it after both games 1 and 2 that the Cavs have done a good job of controlling the paint, especially Donovan Mitchell just continuously getting to the basket at will. That happened again today. So yeah, I would just say it was a good crowd. They were fired up, but the Cavs, took them out of it with a quick 11-0 run, and then they just kept having responses every single time. It seemed like it was going to be slipping away. Evan Mobley had 7 points at the end of the first quarter that I thought were really big. When the Pacers went on their run to tie it up after it was 25-10, and then Donovan Mitchell kind of closed them out in the fourth quarter. Along with a big Max Strus 3 when the lead was cut to 11. And it felt like for a second that it was going to be a repeat of game 2.
Yeah. No, the Cavs, I was stressing to everyone during the Playback stream, but shout out to everyone on the YouTube stream and Playback. It's been a lot of fun. We've got a lot of people there. I was telling everybody, listen, the Pacers, they're going to make a run. How big that run is, it's up to the Cavs, but they're not just going to be down 20 the entire game. They are going to make pushes into this lead. And so how do the Cavs respond? And thankfully, at every turn, Pacers went on a little bit of a run. Cavs respond with a 6-0 run themselves. And they just stayed on top basically the entire way. I want to shout out Donovan Mitchell right away because dude has been incredible. I said it on Playback. I tweeted it as well. I've held off on this take for quite a while, and I don't want to get too bogged into this specific discussion, but I wanted to drop it on the podcast too. Donovan Mitchell, hands down, second best Cavalier I've ever seen. It's not a debate anymore. I know, listen, the Kyrie, the shot, it's literally right here. I have it framed. It'll never be outmatched. I tweeted this. It'll never be outmatched. 2016 will never be topped. I have the banner right here. Everyone knows that that's special. Everyone knows
it says Mountain Dew on the banner.
Yeah, the Mountain Dew logo. Yeah, I know it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that that's
no. It's fortunate. That's what the banner actually has. If you take a look at it really closely.
Forgot this is the Taco Bell Baja Blast.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry because you had a really good take. I'm sorry. Keep going.
The point that I was making is because we know how special Kyrie was. It's not taking anything away from him. Mm-hmm. What we're seeing from Donovan Mitchell is the second best individual performances we have ever seen in a Cleveland Cavalier uniform. If it wasn't for the fact that the number one guy is LeBron James, most franchises, this would be the number one guy they've ever seen. He is legitimately he is a historic playoff riser. ESPN posted this. You could literally find a million different tweets like this right now because Donovan Mitchell is that special in the playoffs. But one that I decided to pull is Mitchell is the 4th player in NBA history to average 40 points, at least 40 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds in the first 3 games of the playoff series. It's only the 4th player in NBA playoff history to do that. LeBron, Michael Jordan, and Jerry West are the other 3. You can find a ton of different weird, obscure stats that have him within just a couple of guys who have done this stuff. He's the only other Cavalier to score 40 points in back-to-back games. He had 43 tonight. He was incredible. So I think we all agree Mitchell is, if I'm not going to if anyone on the YouTube comments, I've seen people say, oh, Mark Price. If you think someone else is number 2, that's fine. It's your opinion. I think Donovan Mitchell's the second best Cavalier I've ever seen. And I've been feeling that way for a while. The last 2 games have officially put me over the top. I can't deny it anymore.
Yeah. And I think that this game was the difference between this game and the previous game is that he actually had somebody else who could actually create their own shot, which I think really helped out. And I know we think of Darius Garland as that, but really Evan Mobley, I think just a lot of, I don't have the numbers of how many unassisted field goals he had, but it seemed like he had a lot of them where he was able to just kind of get into his own offense, like bring the ball up the court himself and just sort of like table set in a way that, Ty Jerome, who I'm sure we'll talk about, has not been able to do at the start of this series. So I think that's a really important distinction between like this game and last game, because last game he really did will the Cavs to what should have been a victory, but this game he did so, but he did so in a way that was less like I have to bring the ball up the court by myself every possession. I have to be the sole initiator for everything this possession. He was just in a role that allows him to really do what he does best even better. And I think that's kind of what showed through today.
I agree 100%. I'm glad you said that because I felt the same way. Mitchell, from the start of this game, I was pointing out, he's being way more patient and methodical with the ball. And that's not to say that he was rushing or forcing in game 2, but different setting, right? Like he had to take basically every shot. He felt like it was all upon him to create everything for the offense. And it's kind of because it was. This game, he would catch the ball, had some daylight on the 3-point line, but he said, I'm going to pump fake and probe a little bit and wait till we get a better shot. And he did that multiple times. There was just like, it wasn't any one particular stretch where you're like, oh my God, Donovan Mitchell can't be stopped right now. But it was one of those games where just every couple minutes he's getting a bucket, just nonstop, keeping the pressure on Indiana. And because he didn't have to go all in offensively and create everything on his own, we saw, I think he had more energy down the stretch. And he had 5 offensive rebounds because guess what? He's not the only one shooting either. Other guys are shooting and creating shots, so he can actually go after the ball. And the Cavs obliterated Indiana on the glass today. I mean, absolutely destroyed them. 56-37 on the glass. They had 18 offensive rebounds to just 4 from Indiana. Donovan Mitchell had 5 of them, I believe. Evan Mobley had 5. Jarrett Allen had 4. They were killing it. The Cavs were crashing like crazy, and that led to the only time where Indiana felt like where I felt like Indiana was kind of creeping back into the game was when the Cavs crashed for those rebounds and happened not to get them because then the Pacers were running out in transition and stuff. But I mean, they just beat them up on the glass, and it was overwhelmingly a positive for the Cavs. Where even when they missed, even when they still weren't, they still haven't shot above 30% from 3 in this series. The Cavs still haven't. We'll talk about that, but even with that, because they dominated on the boards, because they won the possession battle, and thank the Lord for the first time Indiana didn't shoot almost 50%. They shot 30% themselves, still better than us, but we hit 5 more threes and we were competitive from the 3-point line, and that resulted in a 22-point win, which is what we've been saying this entire time, is if the Cavs continue to win the possession battle, and as long as they can at least be competitive on the 3-point line, which you would imagine they can because they've been the best 3-point shooting team all year, the Cavs can win this series. And so I put all these numbers together, and then I'll let you respond to this because I know you've been saying the same thing. Mm-hmm. After game 3, the Cavs lead the series 142-124 in rebounding. In offensive rebounding, it's 45-22 Cleveland. Turnovers forced, Cleveland's forced 48 turnovers. The Indiana Pacers have forced 35. Field goal attempts, the Cavs have taken 40 more shots in this series than Indiana. They've beat them in the paint 180-136, but the Pacers have made 5 more 3-pointers, and that has swung 2 of the games right there. But if the Cavs start winning from deep like they did today, I know they didn't shoot better. They were 1% worse, but they hit more threes, and I think that determines it, right? Like, if they manage to continue what they're doing in the possession battle and hit more threes, they're going to come back and win this series. I feel very confident in that.
I think let's talk about the 3-point shooting. I think that they're generating decent looks. Someday they're going to go. It would help if, Ty Jerome hit a shot. But Donovan Mitchell actually hit 5 threes today. Going into the series, going into today, he was 2 for 20, I think, or 2 for 19, something like that.
Very bad, yeah.
So yeah, him going 5 for 13. That's really helpful. Would love to have something from somebody on the bench. But DeAndre Hunter being able to take 5 threes, I think, is a positive development. He didn't have a good game today, but I think that he looked mostly like you would expect on DeAndre Hunter to look. But before I get sidetracked with this, I wanted to talk about the Cavs defense. They held the Pacers only 33-point attempts, which you can't control how many threes somebody makes. I mean, you can. We've gone over this. You can control, you can contest better, etc. But the best way to do that is just to limit the 3-point shots. And the Cavs have did a good job tonight of limiting the 3-point shots. And I really want to talk about that 3-2 zone that they were able to run, because they had Mobley doing it his rookie year, and I said, wow, the NBA's never going to be able to figure this out, because how are you going to stop this 3-2 zone? And then it turns out JB Bickerstaff said, I cooked here. I'm just going to never cook with that recipe again. We were losing recipes, but then Kenny Atkinson found it, put Evan Mobley back at the top of the 3-2 zone. And I think what that did, in the zone in general, not just with Evan Mobley up top, because there was some DeAndre Hunter up top, even some Max Strus up top. I think it kind of made the Pacers' off-ball movement really stagnate in a way that is uncomfortable for them. Like, the Celtics are comfortable in a stagnant offense where they're just generating the simple catch-and-shoot threes. The Pacers, they're better when they're moving, not like movement shooters, but like they're better when they're moving and the ball's ping, 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 back screen, like just this constant movement where like every shot feels like it's coming in a rhythm and you can't almost like keep up with it. When you put them in the zone, they're just kind of standing around, and it was like, I guess we're going to just end up with a corner Obi Toppin 3 on this possession. And the Cavs were like, cool, man, like, please take that. And then it would be a miss. So I feel like that really slowed down Indiana's offense in a way that we haven't seen them slow down before, even when the Cavs really dominated the first quarter of game 2. But it didn't seem like Indiana's offense was slowed down. It seemed like they were just making it tougher for them. So I really like what they did with the zone here. I'm very curious to see how Rick Carlisle adjusts to it, because he is one of the best playoff coaches in terms of adjustments that we sometimes overlook. So I do want to point out that we'll see how that transfers to game 4, but I think this was a really positive development for the Cavs defense.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I think there are 2 major things that slowed, I guess 3 major things that slowed the Indiana Pacers down offensively in this game. One, I'll mention very quickly, the officiating was very tight in this game. Lots of fouls both ways. I thought it was consistent.
Benefits the Cavs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it slowed the game down. It didn't allow the Pacers to get out and run as much. There was lots of stoppages. There was lots of opportunities for the Cavs to catch their breath. The game just never felt helter-skelter in the way that Indiana wants it to be. Do I expect every game to be called this tightly? Probably not, but I do think there was also, I don't want to get too bogged down into this, but I think there was a point of emphasis from the officiating, probably coming from the Cavs complaining about, it's been very physical. Guys have been getting hurt. Mm-hmm. They've been talking about it for 2 straight games. I don't think it's a coincidence they come out in game 3 and make a clear emphasis of like, hey, let's get this under control, guys. There were some quick technicals that were called. Every little contact, no matter which team it was called a foul. So do I think that's going to happen the rest of the series? Probably not. It was a little egregious today, almost how quick they were to the whistle, but slowed down Indiana. The other thing that slowed them down, we already talked about the offensive rebounding. If you just beat them up on the glass, it's hard for them to get out and run. Then what you just mentioned, the third thing, the zone. The zone took them out of their usual, ball pinging around, like you said, threw them off. I think it surprised them. And this is what we talked about all regular season, as much as we hated the zone at times, the regular season, which they didn't really even run.
We hated the George Niang zone. So
true.
I want to clarify.
And you've done
not even a shot at George Niang.
Yeah, it's just it's harder for Niang to cover ground in a zone than it is for DeAndre Hunter or whoever else may be in that position. But yeah, like as much as people would complain about the zone, and I don't even think they did the Mobley at the top of the 3 zone often in the regular season. But
they never did a 3-2 zone in the regular season,
okay,
and they never
I didn't think so.
They never did one with Mobley at the top.
Because
they did it. They ran it. They ran it in game 1 with DeAndre Hunter at the top. It was like the end of the first quarter, and then Indiana hit like a bunch of threes, but they were unconscious for threes in the first quarter anyway, so it didn't. I don't think it wasn't because of the zone.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was the first time we've seen Mobley up there.
Yeah, and like you said, we've been waiting since his rookie season to get back into this, and part of that is what we already just mentioned, like with the Yang on the backside or whatever. Like I know the Chasedown guys have talked about this a lot too. It's like that zone with Mobley at the top is easier because you had Lauri Markkanen on the backside. Now you kind of have DeAndre Hunter on the backside, which helps. Although he wasn't even necessarily Kenny was a madman today, or he was a mad scientist. He was experimenting. He was pulling things out that we didn't even know he had in his bag, and that's why they experimented with different zones all year long. Because sometimes in the playoffs, you hit the right zone at the right moment, and it swings the playoff game. I feel comfortable saying that the zone completely swung this game.
So, kind of to that point, there was a lot of times where Max Strus was at the bottom of the zone, and this is going to be a take that I don't know if everyone's going to agree with, but I've kind of been holding it in for a minute. Pascal Siakam, what did he do? Like he gets no rebounds. Like there's never any moment where he's just like bullying somebody for a rebound. Like Max Strus is like a third of his size, and like he's sitting there just boxing him out, and Pascal Siakam's like, oh no, what am I going to do? Max Strus is boxing me out. Like I'm not sure how many rebounds he got today. How many rebounds did he get today?
Strus had 7 rebounds.
He got 4. No, Siakam got 4 rebounds.
Siakam had 4. So yeah,
right. And this is just like when you're talking about like stuff like that working, you have to be able to kind of take advantage of where your opponent is a little weaker. And this is just a situation where like the Pacers just don't have somebody who can actually like beat them up down low. Like it's not remember like Julius Randle. Julius Randle was awful in that Knicks series, but like you could not put a Max Strus type player on Julius Randle and expect to like get any kind of rebounds. And that's where, one, shout out to Max Strus, but two, just like I just don't like the Pascal Siakam fit for this team. I really actually like a lot of the guys that they put around Halliburton. Just Pascal Siakam doesn't do anything for me. So I just wanted to get that off my chest while it's been there for a while, and I feel so much better now.
That I'm glad you dropped it. I'm not gonna say one way or the other if I agree, but I'm glad you dropped it because now the Pacers fans who already hate us have another thing to rally for. But listen, the zone to cap off my thoughts on the zone. I think you described it perfectly already, but it completely disrupted their offensive rhythm. I think it's a big reason why Halliburton only 8 field goal attempts, 2 of 8 shooting, just 4 points. Isaac Okoro wasn't even hounding him. Okoro didn't even play in this game, and he was having a hard time getting anything.
I mean, they both could be on fraud watch right now.
Yeah, they both didn't even play is what it looked like basically. But I think the zone, one of the reasons why you play the zone is because it's just harder for Halliburton to manipulate and do what he does, getting into the middle of the defense when you have a 3-2 zone facing him. Like I think they just did a good job of making him get off the ball and limiting his opportunities. And Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, we gotta do quick shots real quick because one, you already shouted out Max Strus, but huge shout out to Max Strus. I think it's almost gone under the radar how good he was the last 2 games. He had 20 points today, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. This is a guy who is like a complimentary piece at best at times, right? Like he's so
outplaying Pascal Siakam.
Outplaying Siakam, plus 32 in his 33 minutes. He was on fire. 8 of 12 shooting from the floor. They ran a couple like side pick and rolls with him, and he was just lights out today. Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, both of them crushed it on the glass. 25 combined rebounds, 9 offensive rebounds between the two of them. I thought Jarrett Allen, in the limited time that he was switched onto the perimeter, I don't have the numbers for this. I know he was getting cooked into oblivion the last few times on switches. Felt like he held up much better in this game. And Evan Mobley, we should talk about the injured guys very quickly.
Yes.
Evan Mobley, if that ankle was bothering him, it didn't seem like it limited him. I don't know if he's 100%, but 18 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. Otherworldly on defense. Anytime it was him versus one of the Pacers players and they tried to get a shot off over him, I'm not sure. Did anybody even score on him? I honestly don't even know. I don't know if anybody made a shot over Evan Mobley tonight. It was one of those games where if he is within 5 feet of the play, nothing is going in. He was so good. Offensively, he was good. He only shot 6 of 13, so it wasn't like one of those super duper efficient games, but he hit a 3. He had a couple opportunities where he just bullied a mismatch, 6 free throws. I mean, dude was incredible in this game. And Jarrett Allen, team high, plus 38.
Hold on. I gotta stop with the Pascal. Not Pascal. I gotta stop because I want to throw in some things with the Evan Mobley. I'm at the game, so I'm going to throw in some color here. We were waiting for Evan Mobley to come out to the post-game podium, and Donovan Mitchell's usually the one who takes forever, but Evan Mobley was taking a while. It's like, what is Evan Mobley doing? And he came out with like the most outrageous oversized suit that I've seen. Like, you know how hard it is to have an oversized suit on somebody who's like 7'4", which was great. I love to see it. But he was talking about how his ankle feels, and he was saying that he really wanted to play in game 2, but that he wasn't quite there yet. And like today, they were like, he was asked a million times, like, how's the ankle? He's like, oh no, I'm like fine. He's like, I just heal really quickly. And it's like, you know what? Every time Evan Mobley does get injured, he does heal quickly. We're going to have to start calling him Wolverine, with how quickly he just heals. And it was shocking how explosive he was. He mentioned that there was a block in the first quarter where he was like, oh yeah, after I did that, I was like, oh yeah, I'm fine. And it was like, yeah, yeah, you are fine,
he
man.
Halliburton on a floater. Like, he caught it like at the top of the backboard. I was like, whoa. This dude looks – I was worried. I was so worried. And I would say – I'll give you my power rankings real quick on who looked most effective in terms of their injuries. Evan Mobley looked basically 100%. He looked healed.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hunter, it's hard to tell because it's a thumb injury. He didn't shoot the ball well. And I'm like, is he missing shots because he's just missing? Is the thumb bothering him? I don't know, but he was fine. Darius Garland, I think he was very, very helpful today. I know the box score won't reflect that, and I guess we should just talk about it. I think he was too. He was super helpful. The offense ran better than it did in either of the first 2 games. We already talked about like all the Mitchell stuff, but like all that Mitchell stuff is a thing because Darius Garland was able to bring the ball up the floor, generate stuff. And again, like the box score isn't crazy, but just literally just having him on the floor posed problems to Indiana's defense that they did not have to worry about. He broke Nembhard's ankles with a pass. I don't know if you saw the replay of that. Like literally made him fall down. I didn't see the replay, but it's a no look dime that he drops to Evan Mobley where he kind of looks to the 3-point line, then drops it into the paint, and Nembhard falls down trying to guard it. And so like that's a read that no one else on the Cavs was making before Darius Garland was on the court. This is just a level of like dictating the pace. We talked about like, yeah, the Cavs slowing this game down. Part of that is having an elite floor general in Darius Garland who understands how to control the pace of a game. Someone else other than like, listen, we talked last podcast. Yeah, they had Okoro bringing the ball up the floor a couple times. Sam Merrill was bringing the ball up the floor. Max Strus, those guys can get it up the floor, but they're not dictating the offense in the way that Darius Garland does. So even though he didn't score much and he didn't even get that many assists, I thought he was incredibly helpful. I also thought that he started the game looking like he was about 80% of himself and ended the game closer to like 60 or 50%. The toe looked like it was bothering him by the end.
I think he looked like, because I was watching him really closely in the third and fourth quarter. He looked like 20%.
Yeah,
he was lower. He was looking, especially like at the end, he was looking really rough. So I think it's just one of those things Kenny mentioned before, like a week and a half ago, about how this is probably something he's just going to have to keep dealing with for the rest of the playoffs. And I think we see that. I think we see why he wasn't playing because, and I talked about this, how I would rather him rest so he can get as close to 100% as possible so that he looks like, in a potential Boston Celtics series, he looks like, the Darius Garland who was an all-star. I'm thinking about like my take from a week ago. Yeah. So, and like now the Cavs are in a position where they can't just like, hope that they make it past the Pacers. They need a Darius Garland to help them take them past the Pacers and then just kind of go from there. So he was super helpful, but this is not like Darius Garland is back. I think is 100% fine. He was still able to generate a bunch of threes, which I thought was really good. Like he took if you have somebody who can't go to the basket, the person who you want who can't, like if you had to choose one person on your team, I guess you would choose Darius Garland because he's still able to like affect the defense that way. He generated 7 3-point looks, only made 2 of them, but I thought they were all good looks. So that's something that if he goes 5 for 7 today, we're looking at this a lot different from 3. So like I think there's a lot of ways that he can be super helpful. And the Pacers aren't a team that's gonna like, they're not a mismatch hunting team, and I think this is why you also did the 3Q zone a lot more with Darius out there, because it allows you to like protect him from those mismatch hunts. So I think this is just going to be a fact of life with Darius for the rest of the postseason. Kenny talked about how he was like even 15, 20 minutes of Darius Garland is better than 0 minutes of Darius Garland.
Yeah.
So the Cavs are very much aware of that. This is not something that Darius Garland is just going to wake up one day and say, "Oh, like my toe is fine." Like this is going to be a thing until the end of the season. So,
yeah.
With that said, he was very helpful. So hopefully he can still continue to play at this kind of physical level, and then hopefully the shot starts falling more. But it's still super helpful to have him.
Yeah, no, I thought he was super helpful. I agree with you, and it, it's the injuries bothering him when there was like 2 different plays where he's kind of falling down, and you could tell that he was only falling down because he was in an attempt to avoid landing on his foot and his toe. Like you could just tell it was like, okay, he could have landed on his feet, but he's intentionally allowing himself to fall and like take a tumble because he's trying to avoid hitting that toe again. That's when you're like, Donovan Mitchell did that a couple times last year against Orlando with the knee thing, where I'm like, oh, there's times where he is falling down because he doesn't want to plant on that knee. So it's concerning, but listen, he was still effective tonight. Hopefully, we'll see what he ends up looking in just a quick turnaround here into Sunday. But you mentioned they had a bunch of 3-point shots go up. They took 47 threes tonight. Last 2 games, game 2 versus Indiana, they only took 39. Game 1, they only took 38. Every other game this postseason, they've taken at least 40. 47 ties their high. They took 47 against Miami game 4, and they took 47 tonight. So just having Darius Garland out there gives you so much more offense. And I think it was pretty clear when you look at the 3-point shooting numbers.
Yeah.
Also a bunch of second chance opportunities help with that as well.
Yeah, I would just like to see the Cavs role players actually hit a 3 at some point in time. Sam hit some threes last game, but like...
Let's talk Ty Jerome real quick.
Yeah, just going down there real quick. Ty Jerome 0 for 4 from 3. DeAndre Hunter 1 for 5. Dean Wade 0 for 2. Sam Merrill 1 for 5. You need something more from those guys from 3. And Ty Jerome, it was bad. As somebody who, as maybe the foremost Ty Jerome fan in the world, I would say that his minutes were bad, not always because of him. There were some bad things that happened in his minutes that weren't because of him, but he was bad. And it doesn't seem like he's not getting to his spots. I don't know. Like, they are attacking him on defense, and I think you're seeing that as a problem, especially he's not a fast guy. He's somebody who can create space, and he's really shifty, but he's not like a good defender. I think they're targeting him there. I think, the Pacers, they don't have a good interior defense, but they are very fast with their closeouts. And I think how fast they're closing out to him is taking away his like 3-point shot, which has been an asset because he takes like 45 minutes to like load his shot. And then when you throw in like he's missing every single floater he's taking, it's not good. But I do think that the Cavs do need a Ty Jerome game at some point in time. I think if there's somebody who can bounce back from the worst offensive nights that you've ever seen, it's somebody with the insane level of confidence as Ty Jerome. So hopefully he does, but yikes, it was bad.
I'm with you there. Yeah, the double-edged sword there is Ty Jerome. If anybody's going to keep shooting, it's Ty Jerome, right? Like, he goes to the Deion Waiters school. I'd rather go 0 for 30 than 0 for 8, right? So I do think this game was less egregious than the last one, partially because, we won, so that helps.
Because
But
you had
it
somebody else
wasn't,
who could dribble on the
yeah.
team.
That's the thing is, like, you didn't have to rely on Ty Jerome, who is going through the yips. I don't know. I think you made a good point. Like, it doesn't feel like he's getting to his usual spots. That's evident in the fact that, like, he's been blocked on the floaters, not since game one, I don't think, but, like, he's always taken difficult floaters, but these are, like, a lot of them are smothered. He actually had a couple open ones today that he missed too. So it's like everything is going wrong for Ty Jerome. 1 for 8 today. I don't even want to look what he's shooting for the series. It has to be like 3 for like a million. It's really bad, I'm sure. Well, yeah, he made like 8 in the first game.
He
was like 1 of 14 last game,
Oof.
1 of 8 today. It's 2 of 22 in his last 2 games. I think I'll say this about Ty Jerome. One, I'll say 2 things. One, I keep seeing people say, like, oh, well, you got to take him off the floor. You got to take him off the floor. Play Craig Porter Jr. Ty Jerome is too important to the long-term plan for this team. Like, let's say, don't want to look too far ahead, but let's say they get out of this round. You're not winning the next round and potentially winning a championship if Ty Jerome is unplayable. He has to be on the floor in some capacity. So you have to keep working him in there and try to get him to work through this. But then there's the question of, like, but how, at what point is he so damaging that you can't? And if that's the case, then, like, where does this team turn to with Darius Garland injured? I don't have the answer to that.
I think that if you have Darius Garland, I don't think it's a problem. He only played 13 minutes. You don't need to turn to Craig Porter Jr. I thought that he deserved his 13 minutes, or like you give him his normal run in the first quarter, and if things aren't going well, then you pull him early. And I think we saw some times where Sam Merrill was in kind of Ty Jerome's spot in the rotation, and I think that made sense because when you have Darius, Sam Merrill's not one of the things that I like about Sam. He's not like obviously he's not a ball handler, but he's a playmaker, and he's a playmaker with his off-ball movement in a way that nobody else really is. But it can kind of grease the wheels of an offense that has limited, ball handling. So I think that's the direction that I would lean to. If there's no Darius, then I would probably just lean more Sam Merrill, more Isaac Okoro. Unless things get really bad, just because it's like the Craig Porter Jr. experience is he needs the ball in his hands, and you don't want to be giving too many possessions to Craig Porter Jr. I think that using him like they did in game 2, where he got like 4 minutes, I thought that was plenty, and that was like a good little experiment and he can give you a little bit of a shot in the arm, and I think he kind of did that in game 1, or game 2, sorry. But yeah, I would not like say, third quarter of game 4, Ty Jerome doesn't have it. Let's throw in Craig Porter Jr. Like that's a wild card that you just don't want to. That is not going to turn up your way many times.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I more so was saying, like, I don't think because I think some people want him out of the rotation entirely. You still got to give him like at least his first stint because, again, he's too important long-term, and you got to hope he can work his way through it. I think part of the problem, this is the second thing that happened to Ty Jerome, or the last thing is, I think speaking of the confidence and everything, I think we are bordering on that territory where he's trying so hard to dig himself out of this hole that he's actually like digging himself deeper into it, right? Like I feel like he has lost the natural flow and rhythm of the game. I know his shots were always audacious and they were always very bold, but I feel like it's bordering. It's a fine line, and I feel like he is now shifting into the other side of this, where it's like, okay, now you're dribbling the entire possession and then taking a really difficult floater. Sometimes, Ty Jerome, I just need you to catch the ball and then swing it. Like, I just need to see you go through one motion before you just go all gas, no brakes. Like, can you just pass the ball one time without taking a shot? Because it literally feels like every time he gets the ball, he's just hunting for a shot. Like, he just needs to see the ball go through the hoop to get himself out of this. And it's like, all right, I need you to just – I know this isn't your style, and I'm not asking you to be a different player, because if you're going to get out of this, you have to –
Sounds like you are, but that's –
Well, I'm asking him to take a deep breath. Let's try to get a good shot. If it's a good shot for you, he took a couple. Listen, he was 1 for 8 today, but there was at least 2 or 3 where I'm like, that's a good Ty Jerome shot. He just missed it. Those are fine. The ones that I'm complaining about, and I've been complaining about since the start of this series, is like, there's a lot of shots where I'm like, this isn't even a good Ty Jerome shot. This is, now you're just like, you're getting a little carried away here. And so I think he needs to rediscover the natural flow of the game. I think he's playing outside of himself right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I 100% agree with you, but I know where you're coming from just because Ty Jerome is never in the flow of the offense, and that's sort of sort of what he does. Like, he creates his own flow. You know, he surfs on his own waves. And that's what, when it looks good, just like, whoa, this is like, that's what makes it such like an adrenaline rush, because you're like, no way, he's not going to do that. Oh, he did it again. But then when it's bad, you're just like, bro, like, did they just take like some like D2 college, like random D3 college guy out of the stands and say like, hey, why don't you just, you know, suit up and get like 15 minutes here? Like, because that's what it looks like, because it's like he's so out of place with some of the shots he's taking and stuff. So I would just say patience, because he's like the meme of the guy picking at the, you know the meme I'm talking about, where like he's just a couple away from the diamonds.
Digging. Yeah.
Like, he's, you know, we're always, every bad shot is just one step closer to the diamonds. So
the Typhoon's coming.
They do need him, and DeAndre Hunter also helps with this. Like, if they had DeAndre Hunter in game 2, that's somebody else who can actually dribble the ball, who can create their own shot, who can shoot over the defense. So I think that's a little bit of like tie insurance. So I do want to point that out, because it doesn't have to be as dire as, well, now we have Okoro dribbling the ball up the floor late in games because, you know, Ty Jerome, we can't trust him. So
no, I'm with you.
It will come around.
I got one last point that I wanted to make, and then I think I'm out of takes. But you mentioned earlier, we were talking about the zone and what adjustment does Rick Carlisle make? How do they solve the zone? I do think there was a trend late in the game on it. Mainly happened because they were running the zone and they only had one big on the floor. It was Jarrett Allen, Mitchell, Garland, and Strus. And I think that was, is that 5 players? No,
there's only 4.
I'm missing somebody. Merrill. I think Sam was out there too.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was Sam. And that meant that Garland was on the bottom of the zone, three of the guards up top. And the Pacers, like, over and over and over again, just said, Obi Toppin, you're going to post up Darius Garland. And on the broadcast, on the playback stream, I'm like making fun of it. I was like, oh, well, yeah, we'll live with that. Go ahead. Post up Obi Toppin all you want. But then this dude started playing like Jokic. He had like, I don't know how many assists he finished with, but the TNT showed like a montage of it too. He was making plays out of the post like crazy. They were cutting to the hoop, and it was like Siakam started posting up Garland. All of a sudden, Mathurin posted up Garland, got an easy uncontested layup. I'm like, okay, this is exploiting this version of the
Mathurin.
That's only when you only have one big out there. You could do that. In other lineups, it's harder. If you have Hunter and Mobley out there, it's harder. Wade. It's more difficult for Indiana to do that. But that's something I'll be watching. It's like, all right, if we go to that 3-2 zone with that lineup, do the Pacers go right back to the well, or is the Obi Toppin post up not efficient? Because I would have assumed that the Obi Toppin post up would not be efficient, but I swear they generated like 2 points every time they did it.
So the biggest problem with that is that whenever something like that happens, you naturally want to like shift your defense over to kind of protect against that, to kind of like help out. And that's what you can't do. So if you're going to give up 2 points on a zone every time, you almost allow that, as opposed to like breaking the defense to keep that from happening. So I think that's something worth pointing out, but Darius isn't going to be down low very often. But yeah, that's a fair thing to point out.
Yeah. I just wanted to hit on that because I noticed it, and I said, all right, the zone might only be for certain lineups then. And hopefully, you know, like Wade, Hunter, Mobley, Allen, you got plenty of bigs to run it with. So overall, game 3, the Cavs took care of business. They did what they needed to do. Guess what? We got to do it all over again on Sunday. Game 4 is just as important as this one. Got to win game 4. If you do that, you head back to Cleveland. It's 2-2. It's a best of 3, and 2 of the games are on your home floor. We're going to be feeling amazing about that, but you got to take care of business in game 4 because you do not want to go down 3-1. Hopefully the guys are all healthy again. I guess we're going to have to see, but
you're going to take a good punch in game 4. You took a good punch today because everybody around the city thought that the Pacers were going to walk to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they still might go to the Eastern Conference Finals. But
it's not going to be easy.
You took a really good shot today you're going to take a better shot on Sunday. And then you just go from there. So, the Pacers have been really scrappy. Benedict Mathurin, you don't have to hand it to him, but I would like a Benedict Mathurin on my team. That's how I'll say it. I think every good playoff team needs somebody who plays with that kind of energy, who can also like score the basketball, play with that kind of edge. So he's been really helpful for them, and I think that's worth pointing out. Unlike Pascal Siakam and Tyrese Halliburton, who we mentioned once today, and it
That's how
wasn't
much
because
of
I
an
was making
afterthought
a
he was today. And that's
yeah,
just
didn't even talk to the media. He said no, just basically outing himself as not a superstar. So, anyways,
I didn't say all that, just to be clear, but he did. The Cavs did a really good job on him today, and I will say they did a great job on him in game 2 as well. It wasn't the last minute that he destroyed us.
Do you know what Max Strus, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, DeAndre Hunter all have in common today?
They outscored Tyrese Halliburton, or they out-rebounded Pascal Siakam?
Yes, they outscored Tyrese Halliburton. Oh, I can do that game too. Do you know what Max Strus, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, Donovan Mitchell, DeAndre Hunter, Dean Wade have in common?
I have a pretty good guess.
Yeah, there we go. So, anyways,
all around great performances from the Cavs. I hate to say it, but I got to be everybody but Ty Jerome. All around great performances. Even like Sam Merrill, who was 1 of 5, helped a lot. Dean Wade, I wrote this in the grades. You know the story. Didn't score. Good on defense. Dean Wade, by the way, just a fun fact. He's played 7 playoff games so far this year. He's only scored in 2 of them. He's getting the cardio
That's cool, man.
He's getting his steps in every game.
You want people to bring what they do best in the regular season over into the playoffs. I think we can comfortably say Dean is doing that. He says, exactly. I know who I am in the regular season. I'm going to do it in the playoffs too. One thing I do want to say, we've mentioned this, but this is the last thing I have. Cavs shot under 30% from 3 for the 3rd game in a row. They only did that. They didn't shoot under 30% for 2 games in a row in the regular season. I think the dam is going to break at some point, and if the dam does break and they have a 40% 3-point shooting game, which is not outside which is not a
like what they did all year.
Right, like a 40% 3-point shooting game, you're not like, man, that's so out of character. Like a 55% 3-point shooting game, you're like, oh, that's a little much. Like a 40% 3-point shooting game, if they get that in, they're going to get that at some point in time. If they get that like next game, like it could be another blowout. So just want to say, keep your eye on that, especially with Darius Garland back. It's easier to generate threes with Darius.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. Like, you hope the dam's going to break at some point, obviously, because I keep saying if they shoot below 30% this entire series, it's going to be near impossible to win. They benefited from their defense today, helping to hold Indiana to just 30% shooting. And Indiana credits their defense too. I'm not just going to pretend like it's all 3-point variance, but I think the Cavs are getting good enough looks to shoot way, way above 29%, which they have. And so if that starts to swing, like I said, if you keep track of if you continue to win the possession battle, and as long as you're competitive from the 3-point line, you're going to have a really, really good chance of winning this series. And if you start out shooting them outright, the comeback's in sight. But it starts with game 4. Well, it started with game 3, actually. Sorry, it started today. This was the first step. Next step is you got to win game 4. From there, like you said, you're going to get a big, big punch from Indiana, because this is a huge game for Indiana. All the pressure is almost shifted back to Indiana in the sense of like, you can't go back to Cleveland 2-2 after the way you started. And of course, the Cavs are facing the same pressure as well. You can't go down 3-1, but like today's game was like all the pressure's on Cleveland, Indiana. It's a playoff game. There's still pressure. They should be treating this like a closeout game. Game 4 is like both teams are facing maximum pressure. This is a pivotal point in the series. This is a monumental game on Sunday, which is going to be a lot of fun to watch. So thanks everyone for watching this episode of the Junkyard Pod. Make sure you're following, drop a like, and leave a comment on what you thought of this game and what your prediction is moving forward. Become a member on Patreon if you really want to help the show. Go check out Fear the Sword, the blog. We got game 3 recap stuff up there, grades, all that. We'll have breakdowns tomorrow. And what else am I forgetting? Playback. Follow on playback.tv/Fear the Sword. We're watching live Cavs games. It's been a lot of fun. So thanks everyone for watching, And with all that being said, go Cavs.
I agree. Go Cavs.